The podcast you are about to listen to contains at least one of the following: strong language, disturbing topics, abusive opinions, generally things that aren't appropriate for little kids or overly sensitive people. So, if any of that stuff's going to get your nose out of joint, this is your chance to turn it off. Welcome to I Had to Say It, the podcast where I not only say the things I need to say, but the things I think you need to hear. And your feelings, they're not a factor. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of I Had to Say It. So we're going to start out as we do by saying Josh, B-Word, Jason, Miss Aaron, Mike, Tabby, Javier, Fitz, McShane, El Jefe, El Devlin, El Morte. It is with all my fondness that I say thank you so much for your support. Now, since the deadline has come and gone for the scavenger hunt that I arbitrarily set because nobody was doing it, I'm going to come up with some other ways to disperse this really awesome shit I got from Ken Madden. And one of the things I'm going to do is, at the suggestion of the guys on the Weathered Soul podcast, whom I might add, by the way, if you did not catch the live, go check out the replay on YouTube or Rumble. It was a really good time talking with those guys. It was a blast. Had a hooting and a hollering, and it was fun. But at the suggestion of the guys on the show, one of the things I'm going to do is there is going to be a chance for, if you are a patron and you upgrade to the next tier, the first 4 people to do that will get free stuff sent to them out of this bundle of awesome artwork and books and calendars I got from Mad Case Studios. And we're going to put a time limit on that too. I'm going to do by the end of March. You have until the end of March to upgrade your package to the next tier. And I will send the first 4 people to do that something out of the package. So yeah, that being said, one of the things that I was really looking forward to talking to these guys about is they are all part of, if you remember back in the older episodes where I talked about the Nomad Network, they've all got experience with that. They're all entrepreneurially minded. They all, look at things from a slightly different standpoint about having mobile income sources, having side hustles, having gigs going on. And they're a bunch of really bright guys. So honestly, it's just my little plug. I'm going to stick the link in the show notes so you can just go to the show notes and click on it and go to the YouTube or the Rumble, whichever you prefer, because I'll put both of them in there. All right, so this episode will be coming out on Tuesday, March 12th. And one of the first things I want to talk about is this weekend coming up is the Oscars. Or not, actually, by the time the episode drops out, the Oscars will have already been done. I will not be able to tell you a single person who won a single fucking thing because I don't give a shit about the Oscars. Actually, I don't give a shit about any of the award shows now that I'm being completely thinking clearly about it. Fuck those people. Fuck the Hollywood elite. Fuck the masturbatory celebration of, oh, look how great we fucking are. Fuck that pathetic-ass circle jerk. Fuck everybody who gives a shit about the Oscars. And I'm saying this in all deference to my friends in the podcasting community who happen to really appreciate movies and enjoy movies, because I don't think most of them actually give 2 shits about what Hollywood says is right and wrong and what's good and not good. But like I said, it's a bunch of elitist, leftist, Hollywood circle jerks, and I don't fucking care. They're bringing Jimmy Kimmel back as the host, and fuck that guy. He's worthless. He used to be funny, and then he got woke, and now he's just a fat, unfunny sack of douche. And I really hope he just bombs as the fucking host, and they look at him and realize he's pathetic and tell him to go fuck himself. Give Adam Carolla a call. See if you can get your fucking career back on track, you fat fuck. Or formerly fat fuck. I guess he's trimmed down a bit. But either way, fuck him. I hate him. I can't stand him ever since he sold his soul for a nighttime talk show. Fuck that guy. Anyway, so on to the main point of what this episode is going to be about. And we're going to talk about the State of the Union. And some of the maybe less talked about implications that have to go along with it. The things that it's got me thinking about now. I every year for the last several years have told myself I'm not watching another fucking State of the Union. I can't stand these people. I don't care to be lied to. I don't care to be berated, particularly since Sleepy got into fucking office. I mean, I didn't really watch him with Trump either, but under fucking Biden, they have gone from just outright fucking lies to literal attacks on anyone who's not towing the party line. And frankly, in some ways, it's actually kind of terrifying because this is the same kind of shit and the same kind of dribs and drabs and little bits at a time that lead up to every tin pot dictator taking and seizing permanent control. And whoever's steering Biden is at the point where they just don't fucking care anymore. They are getting more and more blatant with this shit because they think they've actually got the fucking juice to make it happen. They think they're going to be able to leverage it and make sure that they win, and that will be the end of it. And if you're one of the people that thinks voting still matters, you should definitely get out there and vote against this fucking established statist regime, because otherwise we're all pretty much fucked. If you think the system is working. I honestly think the system's working exactly as it's designed to, and we're fucked regardless. I don't think the Cheeto's going to come in and save humanity. I don't think people that are still stuck in that two-party mindset have any real hope of ever accomplishing freedom or liberty again. On the upside, people are starting to get more into a libertarian mindset, or a mindset of we don't have to pick one or the other. We can work on finding a better fucking option, which would be fantastic if we could actually commit to it. And people could pull their heads out of their asses long enough to go, we have a turd sandwich and a giant douche. I don't want either one. Let's vote for somebody else. And it's a lot easier to do it on small local levels and to build up that kind of power and momentum until it becomes an actual nationally recognized movement, which would be fucking fantastic. And I think that would be better for all of us. However, I also think Americans have gotten to be fat and lazy and stupid and complacent. Too many good, soft years made a bunch of weak, pussy-ass, stupid, poor-thinking, pathetic-ass humans. Instead of focusing on bettering ourselves as a species, bettering ourselves as a society, we have these asshole parasites in D.C. and the parasites behind the parasites that are the bigger parasites that feed off the little parasites that feed off of us. That they sow division, they push all this conflict and strife and bullshit, and it works, and they're good at it, and we're dumb, and we fall for it. I mean, I honestly, the way the world is today is literally every last one of our fault, because none of us are really, we talk a lot, we go online, we bitch, we moan, we complain. Sometimes we even run in a little local election here and there, but nothing, on a grand scale, we allow this shit to happen. We've allowed these parasites to consolidate so much power that these elections seem like matters of life and death. They shouldn't fucking be that critical. The presidential office should not hold enough power that who's in it really makes that big of a fucking difference. Congress should not be a place where corrupt, worthless, parasitic sacks of shit go and sit for 60 fucking years and become wealthy and bloated off of the work that they don't do, and the kickbacks and the insider trading and the bullshit that allows them to amass fortunes that instead of sitting around and fucking off and going to enjoy their golden years, they sit there until they're practically dead because they're just these avarice fucking parasites that just want more and more. They've got more than they can spend on what life they have left, but they're still out there grubbing for more. And the State of the Union this year was just more of that. It was basically a rehash of the 2023 State of the Union. And that, from a certain standpoint, makes sense because I'm sure it's really hard to get Sleepy trained up to remember new lines, to remember that things have changed. With a couple of minor little changes here and there, it was more of the same shit. If you're not on board with our green initiative, you're the enemy. If you're not on board with our bringing gun control to the masses, you're the enemy. And if you're a MAGA person, you're basically a terrorist. And you don't understand, Republicans don't understand the power of women, but you're going to very soon. This motherfucker goes from yelling and ranting and like he's trying to yell at me for I must be wrong because basically it was an entire hour of him yelling at everyone who doesn't toe the line with him. And meanwhile, the fucking just brainwashed, brain-dead leftist assholes in Congress, including that cackling fucking harpy Kamala, popped up like fucking jack-in-the-boxes, applauding every time this worthless motherfucker finished a complete sentence. And sometimes even when he didn't. And it's really pathetic. it's a obvious sign. Oh, look, we have to show how unison and how in lockstep we are. Meanwhile, he's saying the most inane, stupid, flat-out lies, and they're popping up, clapping like, "Oh yeah, he's great, he's right, he's a great leader." And it got to the point they're doing like call and response bullshit during the State of the Union. They're turning it into a fucking show, trying to play to the audience, pandering to the fucking cameras. That's not how you're supposed to conduct yourself with the president. It's not a interactive event. You're supposed to get up there, summarize the current state of affairs in the country, and sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up. It's not supposed to be a long, drawn-out thing. It's not supposed to be you talking about all the great changes you're going to make because you're going to get the other side under control. It's supposed to be about the current state of the country. Hence the name State of the fucking Union. Now, the Union part is dying very fast. The divisionists have managed to drive wedges in there that I honestly think are completely irreparable until one side actually goes far enough, that bridge too far, where they push it too far and actually kick off all the bullshit that's constantly simmering under the surface. And even 6 months ago, I wasn't sitting here talking about, oh, I think there's going to be something that pops off. But I'm at the point where I'm genuinely starting to be convinced. I'm finding myself more and more like thinking I should be wrapping my head in fucking tinfoil because I'm starting to think I'm fucking crazy. But it's not like it's baseless. It's not unwarranted. We have these political career parasites, these statist motherfuckers saying the quiet part out loud. They're not even trying to act like they care anymore. They are saying all the things that all the formerly conspiracy theorists, now apparently just people who were ahead of the fucking curve, were saying that that's what they were going to do 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Oh, we're not trying to do this. We're just saying we're not trying to disarm the population. We're just saying we want common sense. The Second Amendment wasn't meant to say this. No, the Second Amendment, okay. One of my biggest sticking points with all these political parasites that are in D.C. right now is they like to try and talk about the rights that are granted to the citizens. And in the rare occasions where they bring up the Constitution or the Bill of Rights or any of the things they are infringing on a daily fucking basis, literally every one of these worthless cunts in D.C. is guilty of treason to some extent. Well, okay, maybe not like Massey or Rand Paul, and there's a few other guys out there that are really good about towing the line. But more or less, every single one of them violates the Constitution at some point. Like I said, I might issue a couple of passes, but, I mean, Mike Lee seems to be okay. He's kind of growing on me. But like I said, Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, other than that, there's not a lot of people I have any kind of faith in that they're actually decent human beings. I think they're all pretty much fucking... they've paid their blood oath to whatever powers that be to get them in there, and they're going to fucking milk this motherfucker till the cow drops dead. And honestly, like I said, at this point, they're all treasonous. But on the rare occasions where they do reference the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, like I said, outside of Paul and Massey and maybe a few others occasionally, they all forget something. It's not that they're granting us a fucking thing. Those documents exist to limit and restrain the government to stop it from becoming tyrannical. These documents were not written by a bunch of people who were saying, well, we're going to magnanimously grant you all these things. They were written by a bunch of guys who just got done overthrowing a tyrannical government that, by the way, was far less tyrannical than what we are fucking straining under at this point. They were paying something like maybe a 20% tax on tea and sugar. I forget the exact numbers. I'm not taking the time to look them up while I'm sitting here trying to rant and rave. It'll throw my rhythms off. But ultimately, the taxes that were being paid by the colonists that led the founding fathers of this country to say, fuck you, no, were nothing compared to what we pay today. Honestly, the tithes that were paid by the slaves in Egypt to the pharaohs were less of a percentage of what they had in their worth than what is taken out of our fucking paychecks. So, honestly, we are really a disappointment to our forefathers. But ultimately, these documents that they wrote were never written to say, we are giving these rights to people. What these documents said, and I don't care how fucking much you want to argue with it. Oh, well, it says everybody likes to leave out the militia part and the well-regulated part when they're talking about the Second Amendment. No, because if you read the Second Amendment and you have more than a fourth grade cognition level, which may explain the dumbing down under the Department of Education, which needs to be disbanded because all it's done is make the system worse. Other countries, during school, kids are learning how to be healthy, be athletic, to do math. You look at footage of kids from China, they're doing physical activities and field stripping weapons in school, learning how to shoot and be proficient and provide things and do math fast and well and accurately. Meanwhile, our kids in the same grade level are being taught that boys can have babies and girls can have penises. So it's really a fucked scenario of the continuous decline of test scores, the general dumbing down of the American population. The Department of Education and public school systems were never really intended to be bastions of higher education, to make the average American great. It was made to condition people to be in a situation for 8 hours a day, to create factory workers so the rich motherfuckers could have people that were conditioned to 8 hours a day with 3 breaks through the course of the day and a half hour for lunch. That's why elitist motherfuckers don't send their kids to public school. Elitist motherfuckers don't go to community college. Elitist motherfuckers don't go anywhere that they expect us to be content with, because they're not grooming their children to be cogs in a fucking machine. They're grooming their children to be the next leaders because they deserve it, because they're entitled to it due to their accident of birth, not any actual merit or skill or gifts or hard work, just because they were lucky enough to come out of the right fucking set of sack. But anyway, point being, the part that the people who want to go, oh, well, you're leaving out the free and the well-regulated militia. No, now what it says is that a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It doesn't say the right of the militia to keep and bear arms. It says the right of the people. Plus, you got to look at the way the phrasing has changed over the years. Well-regulated in the context of this sentence just means functional. It means your weapons should be clean and functional and ready to use at a moment's notice, because the militia refers to the people of the newly formed country. So in the event of a need, the people could be called to defend their states, their countries. And the original founding fathers thought a standing military was a horrible fucking idea. There are multiple papers and different writings out there where they basically said that the government has no business having a standing army. Standing armies are the instruments of empires, not of free men. So, do with that what you will. But ultimately, my big takeaway from the State of the Union was that they don't even fucking care about pretending like they're trying to play by the rules anymore. Biden, and more accurately, the people that are controlling him, because let's be honest, whatever they gave him was stronger than the fucking stuff that goes up Hunter's fucking nose to keep him mostly on task. And he did go off script a few times. You could tell, you could see it in his face where things unhinged and you could see the cart jump the rails for a little bit. And when he went out and, misspoke Laken Riley's name after being berated by Marjorie Taylor Greene into saying his, screaming out, say her name and all that stuff, and he got her name wrong, and that was a whole nother thing. And then, subsequently went on TV and apologized for saying she was killed by an illegal, saying he should have said an undocumented person, because that's the party line. Now, he did not actually apologize for getting her fucking name wrong, which tells you a whole lot about where the handler's priorities are. They don't care that this innocent girl was killed by somebody that's here illegally. They care that they might have offended the undocumented immigrants. So you do with that what you will. But my takeaway from that is they're saying undocumented immigrants because there is and it's a fact. It's not, they're trying to do things about it. Certain politicians are bringing forward policies trying to change this, but it's never going to happen because it doesn't suit the majority. But undocumented people are still counted on the census in terms of electoral votes and representation in the Senate. So it's realistically not in their favor to get rid of all these illegals because it's more bodies for the census, and every act to try and prove you are a citizen when you're being counted in the census and all this other stuff is being struck down because that is a legitimate threat to their power base. And again, it goes back to my whole they're losing the base that they've had for all these years, so they're importing new fucking bodies that'll be grateful to them for letting them come here. Or, they're also importing terrorists and a standing foreign military on American soil, which is a treasonous act in and of itself, and they realistically should all be facing military tribunals and put under the fucking jail. And I'm saying that pretty much across the board. Again, my sweeping statement of 99% of these political fucks should be locked the fuck up. And then in something that completely follows the tone of this entire fucking administration, there was a point where there was an outburst from the gallery and a man was escorted out of the room, and subsequently it turns out he was arrested. Now, for a little bit of context, Biden said, "America is safer today than when I took office." And then there was an outburst from the gallery, and it was yelling of Abbygate and United States Marines. Now, the person yelling this was let's see, what is the guy's name? Steve Nikui? And if I'm slaughtering that, I apologize because this man deserves some respect. He was the father, he's a Gold Star parent. He's the father of Lance Corporal Kareem Nikui. He was there as a guest of Representative Brian Mast, Republican out of Florida. His son was killed during the botched withdrawal at Abbygate. And he was not wrong for exercising his frustration over an administration that has repeatedly shown they don't give a fuck about the people that die in the service of their values and the piss poor management. There's a reason recruitment's down. There's a reason nobody wants to go out and fight and die for these assholes. And they charged him with a misdemeanor charge of crowding, obstructing, or accommodating basically saying that he was protesting in an area where it's unlawful to demonstrate, after being instructed by a law enforcement officer to cease. Now, these charges carry a fine of up to $500 and up to 90 days in prison. Now, to give you a scale as to why I find this particularly fucking enervating in terms of this administration and the absolute shit way it treats its citizens, particularly those whose children died in the service of this country, is Biden was late to the fucking speech. That's how it got kicked off. The presidential motorcade was stopped by protesters, pro-Palestine protesters in the streets on the way to Congress to give the State of the Union. There were no arrests. Nobody was charged. Nobody was, they could have been charged with impeding the flow of traffic for protesting. You're contrary to what all these leftist fucktards think, you're legally not allowed to block highways. You're not allowed to detain people against their will by stopping the flow of fucking traffic. So literally every one of those picketers, protesters, and assholes who feel like sitting up in the middle of the highway or sitting up in the middle of the road and impeding the flow of traffic could be arrested and charged. Now, they're generally not, because that's the side that these are the useful fucktards that the left needs to try and keep the division growing and the hatred and the ignorance festering and rotting this country. But yeah, no, the Gold Star father who was frustrated that he couldn't get his issues about his son's death redressed by the government, yeah, he gets arrested and faces a fine of up to $500 and up to 90 days in fucking prison. And not jail, prison. It specifies prison. So yeah, you go to big boy jail for 3 months for being a fucking irritated parent who wants answers for your child's death at the hands of a botched administration move. It really, it's just galling to the utmost. And, then he, again, like I said, did a call and response, and he really lingered on the whole, we're pro-abortion, we're going to make sure women have, and he keeps using that euphemism, which I don't really care for, because it's not reproductive rights, it's not reproductive care, it's ultimately has nothing to do with the reproduction. It has to do with the opposite, not reproducing. At least be honest in how you're trying to brand it. And I hate the fact that they still try and use that as a lever, because they had 40 fucking years to codify Roe versus Wade and make it law. They never did. The reason they never did is why I have such an issue with the matter. Like I said, in terms of, I've said it before, I'll say it again, in terms of abortion, that's between you, the other person involved in making the kid, and whatever higher power you fucking believe in. I'm not going to tell you how to live life. I personally don't agree with it, but that's my choice, and only it matters if I'm involved in the process. But again, the fact that they have used it as a club for votes for 40 fucking years, despite having multiple Democrat presidents in office with Democratic supermajorities in Congress where they could have codified it and gotten the law through. They never fucking did. They did that deliberately. So now that it got axed, they want to play the victim and cry about how it's trying to ruin women's rights and all this other shit. No, it's the direct result of your planned incompetence. Nothing more, nothing less. So the fact that it works so well is another thing that I just find so dispiriting about the fucking American people. That they are so easily and readily fucking manipulated is fucking just sad beyond belief in my mind. But anyway, so they had that. They had, like I said, he got Laken Riley's name wrong. Didn't apologize for that. Apologized for saying she was killed by an illegal because, oops, Joey slipped up and his actual true nature came out for a few seconds because he was going off script. The simple fact of the matter is, over the generations, and a lot of the Democrats who are currently pushing the whole pro-illegal shit are on record and on video in the 90s and early 2000s saying illegal immigration was a problem, they shouldn't let it. Biden is a racist motherfucker. I don't care how much people want to try and paint him as kindly old pawpaw. That motherfucker is one of the most racist people. You know, as soon as he gets out of the fucking earshot, he's every fucking... Well, maybe not anymore because I'm pretty sure he's got tapioca between his ears. But when he was still cognizant, he did not refer to different ethnic groups by their preferred nomenclature when he was talking to people he was comfortable with. I guarantee it. I've been around enough of those motherfuckers. I can smell one from a mile away. And yeah, he kind of stinks on ice. But anyway, so after that, they lead him away from the podium. He works the fucking room. It's 40 feet from the podium to the fucking door. It took him like 20 fucking minutes to make that little tiny walk because he's out there glad-handing and pressing the flesh. The press is acting like this is just him being in his element. He's an elder statesman, and this is what he's doing. And they left his mic on so they could get little sound bites and quips to show how well he works a crowd and how on the stick he is, how well he knows everybody on the floor. Now, whether he does or not, it's not the case. You could tell his cocktail was wearing off because he was starting to kind of ramble and wander. And but they did catch him saying something, talking to one of the people. They were talking about Netanyahu, and basically got caught on a hot mics because they deliberately left his fucking mic on. Now, again, don't act like it's an accident, but I think he's going off script. Says Bibi's going to have a come to Jesus conversation with him because that's directly implying he's going to tell Netanyahu how to handle his country's affairs. And again, that goes to the whole, this attempt at an empire that the America goes against the founding principles of this country, realistically. But I suppose to a certain pattern, it's kind of an inevitable consequence of being a global superpower at a time when the rest of the world was rebuilding from a fucking war that never really touched our fucking shores. Yes, we sent hundreds of thousands of troops overseas to go fight in this war, but it never really hit home, so we didn't have the consequences that the rest of the world was dealing with. We didn't need to rebuild our infrastructure from the ground up. We had a huge leg up on the rest of the fucking planet. The next closest thing was the Russians, and they were still having to rebuild their cities because the Germans came at them. They had to defend their own front. The Russians paid more of a price and were, contrary to what everybody wants to try and say, were instrumental in bringing the fucking Nazis down. Now, granted, the commies and Stalin and Lenin after him and all those guys, yes, they were fucking horrendous. Stalin was a horrible, bloodless, merciless motherfucker who killed millions of his own fucking people, which is something, all these leftist retards around here don't want to bring up and deny if you bring it to their faces because, facts and feelings aren't the same thing. It will break their brains when you reference that and those, that was different. That was a different time. That's not what we just want to keep the good parts of communism. The parts where I don't have to actually work and I still have all my basic necessities met because I'm special and deserve, just to exist. But anyway, yeah, back to the point. I'm trying to keep this about the fucking State of the Union. That was supposed to be the general thread of this episode, and how it was. I mean, basically, it looked like you could have overdubbed it with fucking speeches from 1938 Germany, and it would have probably synced up pretty well. Or you could have translated Biden's speech into German and overlaid it on a Hitler video, and it probably would have fit up pretty well. Same speech patterns, same weird, creepy way of talking, going really low and then yelling really loud. There were all kinds of things in here. And now, at least this year, they did away with the red background and the fucking podium in front of the building. But, you know, maybe it's because it's an election year and he doesn't want to appear to be the fucking bad guy from a fucking futuristic dystopian movie. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he looked like V from Vendetta last year, but, you know, or, well, not V. V was the anti-hero, but I'm talking about he didn't look like the Supreme Chancellor standing at that podium ranting and raving. But, yeah. So, like I said, they doped him up. They put him out there. He basically said, here, we worked this script so it's familiar, so you won't fudge it up too bad. And he went off script a couple of times because he had to deal with getting heckled, because he was getting heckled. And he basically threatened the Supreme Court. He accused lawmakers of he basically just stopped shy of calling everybody treasonous for refusing to go along and say, you know what, you did legitimately win. He said something that's very true, that is a lot of shit that comes out of politicians' mouth is only true to them when it applies to the other side. But he said, you know, you're not supposed to only love America when your side wins, but that goes for you leftist fucktards too. But he doesn't want to say that part. He's just saying, no, if we win, democracy is safe and sound, but if we lose, it's a threat to democracy. If our side doesn't win, if we lose this election, it's the most important election ever, and democracy as we know it'll end, and the Cheeto will come in and be God Emperor for life because he wants to be a dictator, because he doesn't want to let me force my beliefs on you. He wants to have his beliefs forced on you. And obviously, if you've listened to me long enough, or if you're new to the show, hey, welcome aboard. You picked an interesting one to catch on to. Go back and check out the back catalog. You might find something more suited to you if you don't like it. And if you don't, hey, fuck it. I don't fucking care. But ultimately, the thing about this is I don't want either side forcing their beliefs on me. I don't want the right-wing assholes saying everybody has to live a right-wing lifestyle. I don't want the left-wing assholes saying everybody has to live a left-wing lifestyle. I want everybody to be responsible for their own happiness, their own health, their own well-being, and live their best lives as long as they're not fucking hurting anybody. That's realistically the way I think the world should fucking work. However, we have way too many egomaniacal, worthless fucksacks who either want to be taken care of, want to be supported, want to live fabulous lives without doing fabulous amounts of fucking work. And there's a ridiculous amount of entitlement that the parasites controlling the thing will capitalize on. They will pander to you. They will tell you what they know you want to hear. They will, without actually ever delivering anything, always lining their pockets at the expense of everybody fucking else. They aggrandize themselves, they enrich themselves, and the dumb motherfuckers that are we allow it to fucking happen. Now, every culture, every society, every empire in history has always come to a tipping point where they collapse. It's inevitable. History is cyclical, and that's one of the reasons they don't teach it anymore, is because if they teach it, people might start seeing patterns, and they might realize what's fucking coming, and they might try and do something to avert it. Now, unfortunately, since tyrannical, parasitical motherfuckers really don't evolve any better than the dumb motherfuckers they parasite off of, their processes are cyclical too, and they are creatures of habit. And like the one world government motherfuckers and all these elitist sacks of shit, the thing they forget is they're also greedy bastards, and the parasite always winds up killing the host in the fucking end. And then you get like these cunt stains like fucking Gates and Schwab and all these other worthless, maniacal, arrogant motherfuckers that are like actively trying to do shit to kill off portions of the population, not realizing without the portions of the population, they don't have shit. They want to keep just enough servant class around to keep them living their elite lifestyle. But a lot of their elite lifestyles are predicated on the massive amount of motherfuckers on the planet right now. But yeah, it's all this ridiculousness. And my big takeaway from the State of the Union was the people that are writing Biden's scripts, pumping him full of drugs, and then trying to make sure he's home by his bedtime before he rambles off or falls fucking down. they're approaching that level of arrogance. They really don't care. There's no guarantee for how much longer. They're actually going to be content to just sit in the shadows. And at some point, they're just going to, you know what, we're done with you motherfuckers. And America being the unique thing that it is in the world, they have to be more careful about how they're doing it. They can't just come outright and say, we're taking everything and you can't do anything about it. Because, and it's ingrained into our culture, we got the guns. And the the United States private citizens own more guns than the rest of the world put to fucking together. And that's inclusive. That's military, gangs, terrorists, fucking private individuals. Everybody else on the fucking planet. America has like 3 times the amount of guns of everybody else on the planet put together in the hands of private citizens. And for the most part, I mean, you have your cultural enrichers and your scholars in the inner cities that are absolutely fucking pathetic and terrible with them. And you have some fuds out there that are like, oh, all I need is my break action shotgun and a wheel gun, and I'll be fine. All these other shit is unnecessary, that are allowing the Second Amendment to be eroded away because they think their guns are okay, so that's what matters. Fucking morons. But the armed population of the United States is literally the only bulwark against this shit. If you stop and look at it from an objective standpoint, that's one of those reasons why the Second Amendment is so important. And it's the only thing that is more important is the First Amendment, because without the free exchange and communication of ideas, it doesn't really matter if you're armed or not. If you can't communicate and exchange ideas, you're going to get fucking blindsided. It's just kind of the way it fucking works. But the Second Amendment is there to protect the First Amendment. So when they start saying, no, you can't do this anymore, we lock and load and say, motherfuckers, yes, the fuck we can. And realistically, that armed population, the huge majority of it, and I've talked about this before, the silent majority versus the very vocal minority. The vocal minority gets all the media coverage because they push the agenda. The vocal minority makes the most fucking noise because that's all they have is making noise. They are constantly carrying on, and they think there's more of them than there are. They think they're more important than they are. They think they're more influential than they are. And for a little while, that was working, but now we're starting to see pushback against that. People are fucking fed up with the vocal minority. And the thing is, the things people don't realize about the vocal minority, there's a really good kind of metaphor for this, is if you put a pebble inside an empty can and you shake it around, it makes a whole lot of fucking noise, but it's only a pebble. And it's really loud. You fill the can up with sand and you shake it, it doesn't make a sound. That's the difference between the vocal minority and the silent majority. The silent majority is the fucking sand. There's way more of them. They just don't make any racket because they don't make any noise when you shake the fucking can. Because they're not empty. There's plenty to fill it up. But those are the ones that are saying, you know what, no. Fuck you, no. And it's happening, and it happens pretty much every day. There's organizations out there that are actively trying to fight every violation of the Second Amendment. Lawsuits in every major state, every time there's a significant infringement. I'm really looking forward to getting when they get all the bullshit in Illinois overturned, because it's just fucking stupid. But there becomes a point where people just also refuse to fucking comply with unjust laws. And that's the silent majority of the country. The people who we're guilty of complacency. We're guilty of not being as vocal about the fuck you no part. Or at least, most of us are. We don't want to jeopardize our comfort. We have comfortable enough lives for the moment where it just seems like, oh, it's an inconvenience, but I'm just going to let it slide. And it's a bad habit that we've all gotten into, and we need to break it. And that was kind of my takeaway from this whole debacle of watching the State of the Union, despite my best intentions to not fucking do it. But I wound up watching it with a couple of friends, and basically I probably was just frustrating them because I kept yelling at the computer screen while we were watching it. And yeah, I can tell you, it's, like I said, to me, the biggest takeaway from it was, I would love to know what sort of chemicals they're pumping into Sleepy to keep him almost lucid for an hour. I'm not going to say he was like full on coherent and back to his corrupt wheeling and dealing horseshit self from the late 90s, early 2000s, where he was an absolutely decrepit and horrible human being. But the Dems don't remember anything because they've been bred to have the short-term memory of a goldfish. Plus, they're more concerned about the really important issues like which bathroom they can use, whether or not they can compete sports that don't align with their biological sex, and whether or not people are referring to them by the right made-up pronouns. So they forget things like the fact that Biden has a track record of being a racist piece of shit who put some of the most damaging laws in the books together and put them in front of Congress to get them passed. The 1994 crime bill. The fact that he was instrumental in making sure that not only could you not discharge college debt through bankruptcy, but that those loans would be guaranteed by the federal government so more people would get them whether or not they were capable of paying them. He literally put the structure into place that the colleges were guaranteed to get paid, so they let every fucking buddy in because there was nothing people could do about it, and they were going to be in debt for the rest of their lives because they got obscene loans at variable rates, balloon rates, and got fucked. And he was instrumental in creating that mess. And now he's, oh, well, I'm forgiving student debt, which he doesn't have the authority to do. He's been told repeatedly by the Supreme Court he doesn't have the authority to do. He basically told the Supreme Court at the State of the Union that he didn't give a shit what they had to say. And it was just the whole thing. Like I said, the handlers are really, they're saying the quiet part out loud. They're at that point where they are arrogant and confident, and they don't think the people are going to be able to resist them. So maybe we need to start having a little hope in the silent majority. Maybe hoping all those motherfuckers who are just want to be left alone. Those are going to be the most dangerous motherfuckers when things go sideways. Is the guys who made their peace and just found their peace and wanted to be left alone. And when they have that taken away from them, people are going to be answering for pushing them to that point, for making them have to do something they didn't want to have to do. I mean, I can only speak for myself in certain respects, but I know once I cross a certain line, I'm not going to be able to go back personally, so might as well go all in. You know, I really hope and pray it doesn't get to that point, but on the other hand, I know where I'm going to fall if shit really does start to go sideways. And I'm going to do that so, like, my children and my son and my potential grandchildren don't have to. And you know, that's just, as far as I'm concerned, that's part of being a decent human being, is trying to make things better for the next generation, not selling them into slavery for stupid, petty shit. A little bit as, you know, TikTok fame and a fucking halfway decent car, and these motherfuckers are willing to sell their fucking souls. And, I mean, we're seeing pushback. We're starting to see that dynamic where things are starting to swing back the other way, but at the same time, is it happening fast enough? I really don't know. I hope so. And I hope this wasn't too much of a downer for you guys. I was really hoping I'd come in. I actually spent like all day planning this out, what I was going to say. And as soon as I sat down in front of the computer, despite my little bullet point notes here, my brain I forgot all the really cool shit I came up with during the day. Like, I'm going to say that. That sounds really clever. And all I'm left with is holding the thought that I know I came up with some really good shit. I just don't remember what any of it was. So I hope this was at least entertaining, if not a little bit informative for you guys. And for now, that's what I had to say. Thanks for listening to another episode, guys. If you liked what you heard, leave a comment, leave a review, leave a rating. Go to ihadtosayitpodcast.com, sign up for the mailing list, interact with the show. Click the links, sign up for the Patreon, join the Discord. Come and interact, be a part of the show. Buy the merch, support your favorite creator. Or support me. Anyway. Thanks for listening, guys. Till next time.